This episode of Author Stories is brought to you by the Writing Mastery Academy. Founded by Jessica Brody, author of the best-selling plotting guide, Save the Cat Writes a Novel. The Writing Mastery Academy features online, on-demand writing courses, including the official Save the Cat Writes a Novel companion course, novel fast drafting, crafting dynamic characters, and productivity hacks for writers, to name just a few, plus monthly live webinars on various writing topics. Go to jessicabrody.com/Hank to learn more and get your first month of unlimited access to all the content for just $6. That's right, just $6. jessicabrody.com/Hank. You're listening to the Author Stories podcast, bringing you the story behind the stories and the storytellers.
Margaret White,
Terry Brooks,
Sheena Kamal,
Matthew Quick,
JT Ellison,
Walt D. Williams,
Brad Thor,
Corey Doctorow,
Brandon Sanderson,
Robin Mom,
Ernest Klein, Jim Butcher,
Sherwin Harris.
Visit hankgarner.com for archives of all the shows. Today's guest is... Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I'm super excited to have Jeffery Deaver back on the show with me to talk about his brand new book that's available everywhere now. It's called The Final Twist, and this is the newest book in the Colter Shaw series. Jeff is one of my favorite authors in the whole wide world. I love to talk to him every year, and I've fallen in love with this series. Colter Shaw is one of the best protagonists, in thrillers today, and I absolutely love what you're doing with the series. Welcome back to the show, Jeff.
Well, thank you, Hank. And of course, we're on doing this via Skype right at the moment, and you can't see I'm blushing now, although because we don't have the cameras turned on. Which is a good thing because I'm not camera ready, as they say. But thank you so much for your kind comments.
Oh, you're so welcome, and they are true comments. I've been a fan of your work for a number of years, like a lot of people have. And when you came out with Colter Shaw, I was interested to see what you were going to do with this new character, and the questions. And I'm sure you get this from everyone, when you have such a beloved character like Lincoln Rhyme, how do you switch gears to another character, and if you're pursuing a new series with a new character, what does that mean for the other folks? And people get attached to characters, and that's a good thing. As writers, you want people to love the work that you do. But you want them to love the other stuff that you do and come along with you as you explore, new characters and new venues and all of that, fun stuff. Now that The Final Twist is out, book 3 in this series, how do you feel about your relationship with Colter Shaw, for lack of a better way to say it?
Sure. I appreciate that, Hank. And it touches on a very important point that I've been thinking about for quite some time now. First, I'll set the stage in terms of, I guess I'd call it production, because as you and I have talked, I look at a book as a product that I create. Sure. And nothing wrong with that at all. I'm a manufacturer of a product. And so what's in the pipeline right now, and my plan for the future, is The Final Twist in, I guess, May of this year. In November of this year, The Midnight Lock, the next Lincoln Rhyme novel, the 15th Lincoln Rhyme novel. Next year, 2022, at some point, will be the next Colter Shaw novel. The year after that will be the next Lincoln Rhyme novel, with some short stories and a standalone tucked in there somewhere. So I'm going to be alternating between these two characters and other characters in a standalone, or possibly two. But they will be available for fans. Lincoln will come back. Colter will come back. But you made a comment that I do want to expand on a little bit about the falling in love with the characters. I was listening to, I believe it was an NPR podcast years ago. Let's say 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And the interviewee was either a neurolinguist or a scientist of some kind, who said that the part of our brain that forms an emotional connection with real living people that we know, our partners, our children, our parents, our friends, and also with those bad people, the ex, the dreaded ex spouse, the bad boss, the fellow who cuts you off on the highway. Those incidents and those people all create emotional responses. The part of the brain that does that is the same part of the brain that creates a connection with fictional characters. And so what that told me was that I, as a plot-driven author, might have neglected my characters a bit too much. I try to make fully formed characters, but having heard that, I decided that from now on, it was important to make sure that all the characters had rich backstories, they had rich personalities, even if those stories didn't have to do with the main plot. So with Colter, for instance, I have given him a very complex backstory with his father, who was an academic at Cal, at University of California at Berkeley, his mother, who was also an academic, and they all fled to a compound in the Sierra Nevadas. And that's how Colter was formed. And he became a character because of that upbringing and because of his personality, who is someone that has definitely appealed to a broad base of my readers.
Jeff, you talk about you being a plot-driven writer, and we all love your books because you definitely take us on an emotional roller coaster, and you take plot very seriously. And you've told me before that you are an outliner, that you take that part of the process very seriously. But you have some of the best drawn characters, and when people start arguing about the types of writers that are either pantsers or plotters, you get into these stupid arguments that only writers get into, and things that only matter to people that talk about the craft. And people want to look at it in a very black and white way. You're either a plotter or you're a pantser, and you care about character development and all of that. Yet you seem to have found the sweet spot of merging these two. Do you think in those terms at all anymore, or yeah, I think that the truth is actually not so black and white about pantsers and plotters, that a lot of people are somewhere in the middle there. How do you balance the two, or is this something that you just don't even think about anymore?
No, I do consider it, and I will say, interesting you say hit that sweet spot. I have decided for let's say starting with the Never Game. That was the first in the Colter Shaw series. I did try to aim for 50% character and 50% plot, because there are scenes in the Never Game that really don't move the plot forward that much. But what they do is they create a tension or a conflict based solely on the character of, say, Colter Shaw and his reaction with the young woman gamer who plays on Twitch and who is quite interesting. And she may be a good person, maybe a bad person. We're not quite sure. But their relationship is deep and complex. And then that I overlay that on the core plot, which is the roller coaster ride. So sort of like you're on a roller coaster with maybe your girlfriend, and you learn as the roller coaster is going along, you learn things that might enhance or trouble your relationship with her. So I do try to balance that. And I will say about the outlining that Joyce Carol Oates said, you can't write the first sentence of your book or story until you know what the last sentence is. And I am an obsessive outliner, largely because my books take place in a very tight time frame, about 2 days, maybe 3 days at the most. They have multiple plots occurring at once, and each of those plots has to end in a big surprise twist, if I may. And that requires me to get a broad overview, a schematic of the story that I can't do if I sit down and simply start to write. there are some wonderful stories that have clever plots to them, but they don't require that level of intricate planning. Imagine the TV show 24. If you just sat down at your computer and tried to write that without charts and graphs and notes about it takes 10 minutes to get from here to there, it would be less efficient. Let's put it that way. You might end up with a very credible book, but it would be less efficient. And I am all about efficiency. I buy the latest word processing systems. I buy state-of-the-art computers. Of course, I guess if it's a new computer, it's by definition state-of-the-art. But I have routers, a couple routers, backup routers. I cannot imagine writing by hand. I encourage my students in the courses on writing. I teach. Some say they write longhand, and I say, well, that's okay, but at some point you don't want a pilot who's flying you in a biplane. You want a pilot who's got all the bells and whistles up there.
Right.
So why should a book be any different?
What Death Taught Terrence by Derek McFadden. Life is a journey. So is the afterlife. At the end of his life, Terrence McDonald must discover its meaning, or he'll be banned from the afterlife forever, and his soul will cease to exist. Join Terrence and those who love him on a poignant and unforgettable journey through a life at once wonderful and harrowing. Learn what Terrence learned. See what Terrence sees. By this provocative story's end, readers may even learn a thing or two about themselves. See why people are saying things like, Derek McFadden writes with an insight few can match. If you like the works of Mitch Albom, I think you'll find What Death Taught Terrence a worthy addition to your library, and the reading of it a life-affirming journey. I found the story immediately immersive, and it stuck with me long after I finished. What Death Taught Terrence by Derek McFadden, on sale now. Authors, I have a fantastic new service to tell you about. It's called PubSite. PubSite is a service to help you build your very own website, your home on the web, where you can promote your work and give your fans a place to connect with you. PubSite is a website platform that allows every author, regardless of budget, to have a great-looking professional website developed by the book marketing professionals at FSB Associates. PubSite is the new, easy-to-use DIY website builder developed specifically for books and authors. Whether you're an author of one book or 20, or a small publisher, PubSite allows you to build, design, and most importantly, update your website pain-free. No need to be dependent on a designer or webmaster to make a small but costly change to your website. Save the money and do it yourself. PubSite is the best platform for authors because it's a book-centric platform. PubSite was built just for authors and small publishers. Every design, feature, and layout is book-centric. They have customized designs for you to use. It's easy to build. No coding or HTML is necessary to create a stunning, professional-looking website with all the features you want. Get a custom domain name, yourname.com. It's simple to update. You can add all of your books, add a blog and a book tour, sell from any retailer, manage your email list and social media, and even do e-commerce. Build your website with a 14-day free trial, then pay just $19.99 per month, which includes hosting. And we offer packages starting at $499 to set up the website for you. Pub-site.com, the place to help authors find their home on the web. So Jeffrey, I have read, and I'm sure you have too, thriller novels before that were obviously outlined, and the plot is just right on point, but it almost comes across in the reading as mechanical. You can almost feel In the same way that when you learn to drive and you got when driving became sort of second nature to you, and especially if you learn to drive in a manual shift,
Oh yeah.
that you can feel when the shift is coming. And I believe you're also a musician and a singer songwriter. In the same way that when you're playing a song, you can feel when the chord changes are supposed to be. It becomes second nature almost. But I've read plot-driven books before that almost feel mechanical like that. Like you can tell when something is going to happen. How do you balance the obviously planning out a book and so that you are in control as the writer, and I think that's very important, but how do you balance that with the spontaneity of allowing the reader to just get engrossed in it and not know when the breakneck twists are coming?
In my course in writing commercial fiction, I have a one of the rules that we talk about for a little bit is take your time. Take your time in all aspects of publishing. So, for instance, when you're crafting the book, planning it out, take your time doing the outline. And that I'll talk about in just a second. The other two are take your time introducing elements of the plot. You don't need to front load all your bios of your characters. Readers are going to stick with you for a while. And the book is more enduring, I think, if you ladle out slowly the facts about the individuals and the setup for the plot. And finally, take your time getting published. Don't jump to self-publishing because you've had a rough time with a traditional publisher. If you create a quality product, there will be a market for it. And creating a quality product takes us back to my first point. Take your time in planning out the story. So my first draft of the outline, if I were to write a book based on that, it's exactly what you described. There would be cliches in it. There would be instances where I artificially produce a reversal of the plot. But I realize that is going to be improved with polishing. And now we're still talking about outlining the book, getting the structure. That's why it takes me months and months to do the outline. And so at the end of that time, I will have thought about the plot enough and applied my reader's sensibility, not my writer's sensibility, but my reader's sensibility to looking over that process enough to know that, oh my gosh, I can't do that reversal here. It's either too obvious or it's unearned. I have not set that up. And that requires me to look back to maybe the third section of the third little chapter of the book or whatever it might be. And that will then say, okay, now I can change this, and it makes it more seamless. But it's, I use flying analogies a lot, and the pilot is up there with all kinds of crazy mechanical stuff that it's impossible for me to understand, electronics and hydraulics. And to me, the airplane takes off. They bring me my drink. I drink my drink. I eat the meal that I probably brought with me because airline food we don't care for very much. But then,
Right.
then he lands, and that's basically, I've just described a flight. That's it. To a pilot or to an engineer, it is an incredibly complex process. But the engineers have worked so hard to make sure we passengers have a seamless and unobvious event in the airplane. Ideally, sometimes things go wrong, but like I just waited an hour for the jet bridge to be repaired, sitting on the tarmac with my connection time eroding. Things like that happen. But ideally, we never see the sausage being made.
Right. Jeff, you published the first Lincoln Rhyme book, The Bone Collector, in '97, and the last one to be published was The Cutting Edge, which came out in 2018, I believe. And then after The Cutting Edge, then Colter Shaw comes along, and we're now up to the third Colter Shaw book, The Final Twist, which we're celebrating today. But 97 to 2018 is a long time to live with these characters. And does there come a point where um, people obviously want more stories from this character and from these characters that you've built along the way. But is there such a thing as getting too close to the characters as the writer? Like, and I'm super happy that you did switch gears and write Colter Shaw because I'm loving this series. But does there come a point where you need to step away from that world, do something different, and now with the Midnight Lock coming out later this year, you're coming back to that world, and we're all excited for that. But is there a mental health aspect to needing to step away from a series that you've established and that people love so much?
No, not at all. Hank, imagine I get paid to make up things for a living, and does it get any better than that? So my joy is sitting down at a computer and wrestling with telling a story that will make my readers happy. That's all there is to it. I'm an entertainer, and so as long as they like Lincoln Rhyme, I'll keep writing Lincoln Rhyme. And when they don't, then I'll move on. And a case in point is my Catherine Dance series of 3 books. She appeared in a Lincoln Rhyme book, so maybe 3.5 books. She was a California investigator who was a body language expert. And to be honest, the sales were not good. People who liked her, but it was a small market. And so I said, well, too bad. I need to look at the market and get the best books I can into the hands of readers. And so I switched to Colter Shaw because I kind of analyzed the market and decided that a character like that had more viability among readers than the Catherine Dance did. Not because of anything about Catherine Dance personally. It was a very interesting, compelling, strong character, but the kinesics was a bit static. It involved a lot of sitting down and talking to witnesses and suspects. And frankly, when I went back and looked at them, I found it fascinating in theory, but I can see why people were not that moved. So, but the Lincoln Rhyme character people like, Colter Shaw people like, and it takes a little while to get a character off the ground. And I'm working right now, as I said, on my 4th Colter Shaw. So he's going to be around for a long time. And some books will be better than others, of course, but but what I'm hoping is that people simply want to spend time with this character and his quirkiness and his nobility, and see what he's up to next, and what kind of beer is he going to drink here, and is it going to be Honduran or Guatemalan coffee that he brews, not in a Keurig, of course, but using a cone filter with hot water poured through it. He's not a food connoisseur, but when it comes to beer and coffee, he is.
Jeff, I know that you are a lover of dinner parties and gathering with groups of people and exploring all the different personalities. As a writer who I love the way you just described coming up with a protagonist and finding traits about this protagonist that people are going to love. Have you ever been to a party or something and met someone, and on the surface you may think, I don't know that this person and I have anything in common, but you become fascinated with that person. What is it about developing a new character that makes you think that this is going to resonate with people? Are there things about building a character that are go-tos, or can you talk a little bit about the process of finding characters that people are going to like?
Sure. For one thing, I rarely take things from real life. I don't import them wholly. Let me explain that. There are no people in my book who are based on actual living human beings. However, we are observant. you as a journalist are observant, I as a fiction writer am observant, and we absorb attributes of individuals that we then put in the hopper, and that they are then translated into attributes of our fictional characters. And so I actually, having lived in Washington, D.C. for a while, I still have a house there, I happened to meet individuals who had quite interesting backgrounds. I met one of the hostages in the Iranian embassy takeover. I've met people in national security. I met police officers, FBI agents, and people who work for private contractors. And of course, for my books, that's helpful because there's crime-oriented elements in what those individuals do, crime or terrorist aspects of what they do. So that was always helpful. I'll draw a little bit from that. But I think I'm a very pedestrian writer. My prose is functional. I was a journalist, so I kind of tell meat and potatoes stories, or I tell stories with meat and potato writing. But so I don't have a gift there particularly. It's kind of a chore for me to write prose. I get it out, it's done, I polish it, and it's certainly functional. But if I've been lucky enough to have been born with any attribute that really helps me in the writing, it's I guess a sense of empathy. I can step into people's shoes pretty quickly. In my books, I've been oh my gosh, I think I've been a 16-year-old black girl living in Harlem. I've been an Asian, a Chinese, I think the fellow was from Chinese, an elderly Chinese man who had escaped with his family from China in a boat, illegally snuck over here. I've been in the mind of Adolf Hitler in my book Garden of Beasts. I've been in any number of other characters, and I can do that with some facility. It's not that difficult for me to do. Kind of sit down in a dark room and try to imagine what it would be like to be this character. Now, you have to do some research. When I wrote about the South Asian community in my book, The Cutting Edge, which I think you and I chatted about, I had to do research. I mean, it's when you cross cultures and races and genders, you have to be careful about it. I wasn't worried about political correctness. I was worried about accuracy and making sure I portrayed individuals correctly. And once you've done that research, you can pretty much craft a character that not only respects who they are, but brings to life that individual in the mind of the reader.
Sure. You're talking about writing characters that are not necessarily informed by your life, and I think some people really struggle with that. You talk about writing a black female character from Harlem, and I'm reminded of a conversation that I heard one time with the great songwriter John Prine, who we
Sure.
lost to COVID this last year,
Right.
and he was talking about the song "Angel from Montgomery." I mean,
I was just thinking, that song just went through my mind, but I'm sorry, please go ahead.
no, the song literally opens, the beginning lines are, "I am an old woman named after my mother." Like he's establishing right off the bat, this is not him. Yet he takes you on the journey of this character, and that's what a writer does. I think if you're so worried about pulling from your personal experiences, maybe you're missing the point in some way.
It's our job to craft characters. I mean, I can't have every character in my book being a 6 foot tall, bald white male who came from the Midwest. I mean, that's
Right.
who's 71 years old. That's not going to fly. It's our job to craft characters, and of course, be conscious of stereotypes, be conscious and respectful, which doesn't mean you have to take a minority character and put them on a pedestal by any means. It means you simply have to tell the truth as you see it, based on research and having some empathy for the individuals, and that applies to the good ones, the good guys, and the bad guys too.
Sure. When I got a review copy of The Final Twist in the mail from your publisher a while back, My initial response was reading the title, The Final Twist. I was like, oh no, is this going to be the end of Colter Shaw? Is he wrapping up this series? There's a little pun in the title that made my heart sink, and I'm super happy to know that there's more Colter coming. But kind of set up the book for us. Where do we find Colter in this book, and what is the mess that he's gotten himself into?
Sure. Colter Shaw is a reward seeker. Of course, he travels around the country in his Winnebago looking for rewards offered by police for suspects whom they can't find, and also by private individuals for missing children, for instance. And he, this book finds him in San Francisco, where he is not only pursuing the reward offered by a mother for her daughter, a street musician who's gone missing, but he is trying to find the secret to the death of his father, and his father died under mysterious circumstances a decade ago. And the clues that he's recently discovered lead him to San Francisco to a safe house, and that in turn launches him into this plot that involves a missing courier bag. This is right out of Alfred Hitchcock, and and in the bag is what we eventually learn is a cataclysmic set of documents that will upend government and society in California, and in California spreading to the rest of the world. Rest of the country. I can't say more than that. But the hook in this book, well, the hook in the Never Game, the first in the series, was video gaming. The hook in The Goodbye Man was cults, like the Jim Jones cult in Guyana. And the hook in this book, that is the theme, what's it about, is about politics and the interplay between corporations and government. And I found it fascinating, written of course, during the time of the last election, to maybe echo what was going on. And I generally don't write political books, but this is in the thick of politics and in the thick of great intrigue as well.
And this book is a thrill ride like none other. Colter Shaw is such a fascinating character. I mean, from your first descriptions of that he's a reward seeker, literally the opposite character of a Lincoln rhyme. So much. This has to be so much fun to write. Are there certain things that you do to get into the character's head when you're beginning a new, when you're switching from writing Colter Shaw to Lincoln rhyme and back again? Are there rituals that you've developed over time to get back into this character's head?
No, I am very lucky. I can shift gears pretty quickly. I don't have I don't have this sense that I've been living with Lincoln for a month. It's going to take me some downtime to really get a Colter Shaw frame of mind. I can really just like turn a switch and there we go.
Gotcha. Jeff, you mentioned earlier that you love to keep up with the latest technology and things like that. What are you using these days to write with? Are you a Microsoft Word guy, or you what is your process?
Yeah, I'm a Microsoft Word person. I had WordPerfect a long time ago, but I couldn't get really good support for that. And so what I do is have I have my assistant kind of check out what the best computer, the bang for the buck is. I mean, I'm not paying $3,000 for a gaming computer, but I'll spend $1,100 for one with Microsoft 365, I think it's called, that suite. And so I use that, and then I just move on to the high-speed modem. I'm a tech guy. That's it. I'm not a real geek, but I certainly am a tech guy.
Love it. The Final Twist, the newest Colter Shaw novel, is available everywhere now. We're going to put links to it in the show notes of this episode. You can grab it in Kindle edition or hardback or audiobook if you love to listen to audios. These are some of the best audiobook productions that you'll find. Jeff, if people are just learning about you and want to dig into all the amazing stuff that you do, where can they find you online?
Well, jeffreydeaver.com will tell you more than you ever need to know about me. You'll find buy links to my roughly 45 books and 60 or so short stories, and then of course Twitter and Facebook. And I think I'm on Instagram, but I'm not so photogenic, so I try to stay away from those photo things.
Jeff, I love the final twist. We're going to send to everyone to pick up a copy of it. Thank you so much for taking time to come back on the show.
Hey, my pleasure. And maybe in November we can chat again about the new Lincoln Rhyme book if that works out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Authors, if you're looking for a partner to help ensure that your book is the best it can possibly be, look no further than Pico's House. Crystal and her staff make a conscious effort to be critical yet courteous. They also strive to make the business side of things run smoothly so that you can rest easy knowing that your manuscript is in capable hands. Whether you need beta reading, developmental editing, a manuscript critique, line editing, copy editing, or proofreading, Pico's House is the one-stop shop for you. Check them out today at picoshouse.com to get started.